to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to another edition of the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Really excited to be here with everybody today. And if you do want to support the show, by all means, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. And if you follow this show on any other form of social media or streaming service, by all means, give the show a like and a follow there. Coming up on today's show, I have an interview with Norman Skinner. Norman Skinner is the new singer for Forbidden. You may remember I did record an episode a while back about the fact that I think he would be a great fit for that band. And Norman decided to come on the show, and we not only talk about Forbidden and the current recordings that he is doing right now for the upcoming Forbidden album, but we talk about the band Niviane, which has a new release out. We talk a lot about the other projects he's participated in. But I'm really excited for this interview because the last Forbidden album, the Omega Wave, for me, it's easily one of the most incredibly well done heavy metal albums I have ever heard. And Norman is working on new material with them. And Forbidden is one of those bands that, you know, I've always thought never received enough recognition for the awesomeness of the stuff that they have done. And I'll actually be doing an episode on the albums they've released so far at some point. But anyhow, I did have their new lead singer, Norman Skinner, on this program. Here you go. Enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. And today I am joined by Norm Skinner, the singer of Forbidden. Brand new album by his other band, Nvian, called Queen of Phantoms. And then, of course, he has his solo project, a couple solo albums under his belt. And he also sang in Imagika for a number of years. I think I've rolled off the resume a little bit there for you. So you've sang in a lot of bands. So thanks for coming back on the show. It's been a lot of fun. Last time we talked, you had that second solo album out. So now we get to talk about a lot of cool stuff today. And let's start off with your new album, the new album.
Yeah. So the Nviane album is, as you said, Queen of Phantoms. We actually finished that album like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But we just couldn't find the right label to release it. You know, it was either crappy deals or the ones that, or the ones that we wanted, they didn't want us. So,
right.
But that's the way it works. So we just held out and waited until we got the right deal. We were actually this close to just releasing it ourselves and being like, F it, do the best push we can. But, and then, within that last 6 months leading up to the release, actually, I'd say within the last year leading up to the release, that's where things just kind of went downhill with the band. We recently announced that we disbanded, but honestly, we had disbanded like 6 months before the album came out. Just nobody knew. We weren't going to do that to the label before the album was released. But I think it's one of our best, if not our best, release that we did, and it's a bummer, the timing of the band dissolving like that, but everyone has their own projects, including me, of course. It gets harder and harder to devote time and energy to that one when it's slowly becoming a side project for everybody.
I mean, obviously you having touring commitments, I'm sure with Forbidden, it's gonna put a little bit of a dent in that record. But look, I think the album is very good. I think you went out on a high note, right? And hopefully, and at some point, you never know, you could revive the project again down the road. You guys might get inspired. They may, want to say, hey, let's at least, maybe we won't tour, but maybe we'll just put together an album when we have some time. I mean, a lot of times that's how it happens, but I think the album is very good.
Yeah, that was I think it. I mean, a lot of people, the reviews have been phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten a couple of people saying, early contender for a top 10 album of the year potentially, things like that. So it's been really awesome. And you're right. I know that I had brought it up. I'm like, hey, even if we write and record, our fans will still be getting new music, but not everyone was into that plan, so there you go. But not all is lost. I mean, we had about 4 or 5 songs already in the works for a new album.
Mm-hmm.
And at least four of the five were written by Gary Tarpley, and what we did is we're just basically taking those and putting them towards my new Skinner solo album that'll be in the future. So
sure,
he and I are still working together, so people will still be able to get their a little bit of that Norman power metal fix through that that way instead. So
yeah, you're doing the thrash thing, so definitely there's a different side to the type of music you're going to write, because it's going to be a lot different than what you're probably singing in Forbidden, for sure. And it's always cool to have that other outlet for another kind of heavy metal or music that you want to do. Definitely that second Skinner album is a lot better than the first one. I think we talked about that previously. Oh, yeah. But no, look, I mean, if this band is disbanded and you go out with this third album, look, I think you went on a high note. This is the best of the three records that you've definitely done. And it is a shame, but all good things come to an end, right? So,
yeah, it just ran its course, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I do think it was our best. I mean, we just really honed in on what our sound was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by the third album, we were like, okay, we're not trying things. We just know what we write and what we sound like. So
sure. So let's kind of lean into Forbidden, because you joined that band after the last interview that we did, so we never really talked about any of this. But I had said, I mean, it's been like a couple of years now, it feels like, but I had said you were a great replacement for that band, because a guy like Russ Anderson, is a very good vocalist. His voice was definitely different and suited to that band's music, and I think your voice is definitely along those lines as well. And how did that whole gig come about? Like, how did you end up getting into that band?
Oh, complete accident. There's the disclaimer, this was not planned in any way, shape, or form. But Craig was doing so right off the bat. Craig, Chris, those guys, I didn't really know them. I mean, within the Bay Area scene, I would run into them at a show, mm-hmm. and maybe, hey, what's up? But we would never like take pictures or hang out and have a drink. We didn't know each other that way.
Sure.
And Craig, I mean, at one point he had me audition for his Dress the Dead band, but it wasn't my thing. So, I passed on that. And then we really didn't talk anymore after that. And then he was doing this thing called Bay Area Interthrashional, where a bunch of, who's who names would play thrash songs, but you can't play your own band song. If you're in Overkill, you got to play a Death Angel song. If you're in Death Angel, you got to play an Exodus song, etc.
Okay, yeah.
So you get just different guys, and it was a whole thing. I didn't know anything about it, but I guess they were getting ready to play. This is like 2.5 years ago or something. They were going to play the Dynamo Festival, and the singers that they were using was Mark from Death Angel, Randy from Lamb of God, some of those guys. So none of them were they were either on tour or they didn't live in the area. And I guess we'll call them Forbidden for now. Forbidden was sort of the core band that, and they were using their rehearsal space. They were filtering guys in and out that would learn the songs and play them, but they were sort of the core band, and they didn't have any singers to keep everybody on target with the, counts and everything.
Sure.
So I think it was Contos who was aware of me just as a singer. It's like, said to Craig, hey, why don't you get that guy Norman to come in and learn the songs? That way he can just help us with the rehearsals. So I got a call from Craig out of the blue. He's like, hey, and he's like, would you be down to learn 12 songs? Come down and rehearse with us for a few weekends just so we are ready when we go to this festival. That was it. And I was like, yeah, man, that's something. I have no problem doing that. And I went down there. There was, a lot of people in there that were, more legend status than I was used to hanging out with, you know what I mean? But I just did my thing. I just kept my shoulders straight, just sang all this. Told you I learned 12. Mm-hmm. And 3 rehearsals in a row, we only did 11 of the 12 songs. So on the last rehearsal day, or one of the last 2, I said, hey, what about the last song, Off the Edge by Forbidden? Are we going to do that one? And Craig's like, well, we wouldn't play that because, we were in Forbidden. Because the people in the room, it was Craig and Matt. You had Steve Smythe from the Omega Wave lineup. You had Mark Hernandez from the Omega, and but then you also had Contos, a bunch of other people playing too. But so none of them were going to learn it. And then somebody was like, "Hey, you guys should just learn it anyway, again, a refresh, in case somebody drops out or you have to play the song."
Mm-hmm.
So we did it. And then when I was singing it, I guess the door opened behind me, and guys that were in the hallway were just like looking in and just being like, "Oh, what the," and I guess Craig saw them looking at him. He's like, yeah. So I finished the song. Craig just said to everyone, he's like, "It's not lost on me. He just killed that," But that was it. There wasn't any other talk about anything. They did offer me to do the San Francisco version of Bay Arena Thrashtional, where they were doing multi-sets. They were doing US metal, Euro metal, old school thrash.
Yeah.
And they asked me if I would do Chalice of Blood, except the band would be Warbringer, except I would sing instead of their singer. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. But by the end of the whole thing, I had like 9 songs across the set. I was singing more than anyone else. I did Chalice of Blood and the place erupted. Everyone was like looking at Craig, because everyone loves Forbidden. They want to see Forbidden do something, right?
Mm-hmm. Me. Yeah.
And then I was backstage, and Contos came in. And he's like, "You're stupid if you don't get Forbidden back together with Norm," and blah blah blah. And I'm just sitting there on the couch, like keeping my mouth shut, like, okay. But that's how it all kind of fell into place. And then I guess what happened is Alcatraz Festival called. Anthrax, the shirt you're wearing. Mm-hmm. They had dropped out. They contacted Craig. They said, "Hey, would you got 35 years of Forbidden Evil. Would you mind getting, maybe Contos on drums and that guy, Norman, or, I think that's what they said, or maybe just another singer and, doing a set." And then that's when I guess the light bulb went off, and he's like, "I'm going to give him a call." So he gave me a call, and I thought I was getting a call from our Bay and Thrashtional stuff, but nope, it was a Forbidden call. And that's how it happened, man. I was just helping out, really. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, just did the work.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that the Omega Wave, it was an incredible album. And
my favorite.
Yeah. And my favorite by the band too. And I remember, because when that came out, this is when you kind of had this renaissance with a lot of these thrash bands really putting out a lot of great stuff. Death Angel was back and doing this, Exodus, Testament was putting out some stuff. And the Omega Wave was great because, around that period of the mid to late 2000s, you had Heathen putting an album out. I was really excited to see the band back because, they lived up to their reputation, because I liked the other 4 albums they had done. And then you just, obviously, you didn't hear anything for a long time. And obviously I still have my Forbidden shirt from that album cycle, but, it was an incredible record. And to hear the fact that the band is back is cool. So, what were those shows like initially when you started singing on stage with them?
Oh, my initial shows?
Yeah.
So they kept everything very hush. They weren't letting like anything get out. There were some people that would hear us, through the rehearsal window or whatever. And we started off with a hometown secret show that, ended up being sold out, but it wasn't too secret for those who know. And we just performed under Twisted Into Evil. And it was a very small venue. And that was just sort of like, let's give at least all our friends and fans here the first taste. And it was overwhelming. Like, everyone loved it. Afterwards, people were just coming up saying, "This is going to work." Because, in the back of my mind, I mean, it's big shoes, man. It's a big, everything's just, this is a band I grew up listening to,
Sure.
So for me, it's always been a little nerve-wracking at times. I didn't know how I'd be perceived. Hell, I've grown up in the era, and I'm sure you have as well, where we've seen singers replaced, and we've seen the hate that can be thrown their way if they're not the right fit, and even if they are the right fit, But so that went over well. Then we went overseas. We did the Alcatraz Festival, and we did a show for a VIP show, and those went over huge as well.
Yeah.
And I think what kept me going was the fans. When we would do like the signings and things, they would come up and they were like, they'd say weird things. And I say they're weird because to me, I don't look at it the way they do. They say things like, "Thank you for saving my favorite band."
Yeah.
I didn't save anything, or "Thanks for bringing back," I don't feel I did anything. This is a whole group effort, and I just happen to be the guy that was available and I guess lives in the area and sings well enough. It just kind of works.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of nerves in the early shows. I didn't know what to expect. I'm going out, I'm not singing my own stuff. There's not one song I wrote. Every song is a staple off of, these legendary thrash albums. And if I don't do it right, I'm going to hear about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a little nerve-wracking to answer your question, those early shows, but very exciting at the same time.
Speaking of hearing about it, there seemed to be, maybe I didn't see it, but there didn't really seem to be any like negativity directed towards you, when people saw you singing these songs. A lot of singers, and this, you're a music fan, you've seen it happen. Like you mentioned before, you get people that come in, they could even be a great singer, but people will give them a lot of crap because they're not the original guy. But it didn't seem like you ran into that. I remember, I don't know, maybe it might have been YouTube about, there was a show that somebody, one of the cell phone, camera shows or, videos somebody posted on there. It might have been with you singing. And I was like, man, this dude, like, I always thought that your vocal style would fit them, when I heard about it, but it actually, seeing it was, it confirmed all that, but you didn't seem to get a lot of pushback, it felt like.
No, and I know exactly which video you're talking about. That was the video from that Bay Area Thrational where I did Chalice of Blood with War Ring.
Yeah.
And all of the comments were just fantastic. I think one thing that helps me, which has nothing to do with my vocals or any of my talent, is the fact that Russ retired. Now, if they were just not to bring back Russ, they just replaced him with some guy, I think there'd be a lot more pushback. But the fact that this is a singer who's says, I am no longer in music, I want nothing to do with music, the only way they're going to get New Forbidden is with a new singer.
Sure.
So I think that helps me, that benefits me a little bit. But on top of that, I definitely stayed true to try to make sure that I sounded as close as possible to those original albums while throwing my own little me in here and there. But I didn't just go and be like, F what it was, I'm doing it my way all across the board. That would have been vocal suicide. There's been the worst thing I've seen has been the comment here that pops up one out of every 1,000 where it says no Russ, no Forbidden. And somebody that's not willing to give it a shot, they're not willing to listen.
You're always going to have that.
Yeah. So, but other than that, no personal attacks, nothing bad. I've been really well accepted, and that's it's surprising and awesome at the same time.
I think you're right. I think the retirement thing is probably plays into it. But, the interesting thing is, and I think here's what typically happens, and you've probably know this. You'll get that naysayer that'll say no Russ, no Forbidden or whatnot, but then the album will come out, right? And it's kind of like that guy Travis from Crimson Glory, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, he got a different singer. People were unloading on him, bashing this guy before they even heard him sing a note. And then he plays a show and then suddenly that all went away, so
I watched the videos. I was like, this guy sounds great.
Yeah. And that's my point. So what I'm saying is that I think when people saw that, when they realized, okay, Russ isn't coming back, you went on stage and nailed that song. And the video you're talking about is the one that I'm referring to. Because Russ he was a much different thrash singer than most of them. Because he would go from these harsh vocals to more of almost a clean singing voice in some sense. And that not many thrash singers have done anything like that. It's not common. So you have to have someone that fits into that, and you fit into that because obviously you sang in Imagika, you sang thrash metal, and then of course you're doing power metal with the band that is now disbanded, sadly. And you have that perfect mix from your vocal style from that standpoint. And I think that's a big reason why I thought you would be a good replacement when that all went down. And so I think as a fan too, I think what helps is that you grew up listening to that band. It's kind of like, man, if I were a fan of these guys, I would want this to sound, I would want to sound it the way I'd want to hear it, right? And I think that that's another aspect in a way you probably can look at it when you're doing this.
Yeah, no, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, right now we're, I recorded one song already that hasn't been released, but it's going to be released soon enough. They just finished the single artwork for it, and there's the clock is already ticking on that first song being released, and
sure,
I kept in mind, I'm like, I gotta throw a little bit of Russ in there on some of this. I can't just be like, okay, well, now here's a new song done completely in the style of Norm. No, so yeah, it's a balancing act with some of these songs, and it's a little different, and there's a bit of a learning curve for me because I'm so used to singing a certain way and recording a certain way and everything, and now it's like with this group of guys, it's like, well, we don't do it that way, we do it this way. And like we were talking about before we started the interview, I just finished a powwow with our guitar player Daniel Mongrain and found out that I sing a lot of happy chords, a lot of majors, he says. So, we're going on ways to, I don't know, maybe make it sound a little more evil or, but then when you've been singing power metal for, 10 years, that tends to happen. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping it in the back of my mind that as we roll out these new tunes, to make sure I still stay true to what I think the Forbidden fans will like while staying true to myself at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, does it bring something different out in your vocal approach or in your voice working with guys like this that have been around a long time in a little bit of a different style of music that you've been, different from what you've been doing? And, you've done some thrash metal in the past, but it's different with guys like that because these dudes have been around a long time. They're in a very, well-known thrash metal band from the Bay Area. That's, to be honest, it has always been an incredible band. Did it bring something different out of you that you probably didn't think you had, when recording, music like that?
Not really in that sense. I mean, I'm not doing anything that I've not done before, in a sense. And you're right. Back when I did Imagika, that was basically a sort of a power thrash band. I thrashed up on some songs, clean singing, but I wasn't a seasoned vocalist as I am now. I didn't know everything I know now. I mean, if you listen to like the first two, I think, Imagika albums I did, you might find one harmony on there. Like, I didn't even know how to really do harmonies. It was like, if I wanted a harmony, I just doubled the line of the same damn note.
Yeah.
So we learn and we grow. And now I think it's to the point where I go in the studio, I'm not doing anything that I've never done, but at the same time, working with these guys, I am doing things a bit different. They are coming up with ideas and making me think completely different on sections of songs where I would think this way, and they're like, well, what if we do this? What if you try that? I'm like, I would have never thought of it that way. It's just a different style. And that part is very fun. For anybody that has an open mind, and I can take criticisms and ideas because I'm very open-minded. I don't go in a situation thinking, this is the way I wrote it, this is my melody, and that is it.
Yeah.
I go in there thinking, this is what I want it to sound like, but let's see what everyone's ideas, what they make it sound like in the end. So,
sure. No, absolutely. So, this is going to be, how would you compare some of this new music to, let's just say the last Forbidden album that came out? I think Omega Wave was pretty well received, if I remember correctly.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, people love that record. I still, it's funny. I still listen to it every now and then. It came out. It feels like it came out yesterday, but it's been a long time.
Right? It's been like 15 years already.
Yeah.
Crazy. The music itself, I've heard Craig. He says that it's very a mixture of Omega Wave and Twisted into Form. Those are the that's the cross where vocally, I'm doing the more modern sounding singing like I do. I'm throwing in my harsh screams and growls sprinkled throughout, which Russ really didn't do until Omega Wave. Omega Wave, all of a sudden, it's like, oh wow, I mean, Green was an angry album, and then that was just more just like raw scream and just anger. Omega Wave was a more polished, like some more death vocal stuff thrown in and stuff.
Yep.
So I'm bringing a lot of that in these songs here and there because that's something I like to do, just like on the Niviane albums, But then at the same time, I'm taking a lot of the kind of phrasing and that kind of that Russ would do on those old thrash songs. Yeah. And of course, I'm keeping the high notes in there, here and there, not overdoing it, just placing them where they need to be, so you get that little there it is. Cool. Just trying to really balance these songs as best we can, so that and for me, I'm just those are my two favorite Forbidden albums. Twisted into Form and Omega Wave. So
I am 100% in agreement with you on both of those records. If I were ranking them, Omega Wave would be number 1, and then Twisted into Form would be number 2.
We're brother. I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yet the thing is, I know like an album like Green got a lot of crap when it came out. But to be honest, I don't know why I like that album a lot more than most people do. I don't know why that is, but I remember buying it when I was in high school back in the early 90s when it had come out. I liked the album. I went back. It's funny because before I did this interview, I decided, I'm going to go back and listen to Distortion and Green again because I wanted to because I've had those albums for years, but I wanted to listen to them again because I probably hadn't heard them in 20 years. And I found that I like Green a lot more than I probably thought I did back when I'd heard it. And it always gets hate. I don't know why, but it's
for
good.
Me. I think it was one of those albums that was maybe just a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah,
potentially. For me, it seems like, at least being around the fans, it sounds like you either have the fans that just don't like the album or you have the ones that love the album.
Sure.
Right? Because we did play, one of our Christmas shows with Death Angel that we did the stream on. We did 2 songs off of Green. And I remember seeing comments where some people were like, why did they play that? They could have not done that. And then other guys were like, yes, they pulled some stuff off of Green. So very polarized responses for sure.
And the other thing is too, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but albums that bands put out, let's say albums that are considered not their best, what's interesting about that is as time goes on, you'll see more and more people look back on it like, that album wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Or, maybe people, you get a lot of people, maybe younger people that discover the band and they don't react to it the same way. And I've noticed bands from albums from the early 90s to mid 90s that used to get a lot of hate. I've noticed just even comments on social media that you're hearing all these people. Yeah, I used to not like that album. Now I like it. Or I can't believe people didn't like this back. You just see more and more of that. And yeah. I mean, I'm somebody that's like that because I remember when I heard Green, I didn't think it was bad. I mean, I didn't, there was hate obviously for it, but I went and listened to it again, and I'm like, this album is actually pretty good, at least for me. And I hadn't heard it in probably 20 years. So, I mean, you get a little bit, time kind of heals all that with some records. And
I guess it has to do with also where were we at that point in time and what the scene was, and
sure,
our mindset might have been in a different place, not really for that type of music. But yeah, I agree with you. They're I'm not going to rack my brain trying to figure out which ones, but there are definitely, I'm sure, some that I feel exactly the same, where if I listen to them now, I'm like, oh yeah, I really didn't like this one that much back then.
Yeah, I've done a lot of that reminiscing. I did this. There was one day I decided to pick out records that I didn't like or that most people didn't like, and I listened to them. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't like this. Or, there's albums that I've heard that I loved, and it's like I don't care for it that much anymore. So, I mean, you have the opposite effect on it. So, with the back catalog, because you've done some shows, what are some of your favorite songs that you absolutely love to sing from this band's back catalog? Yeah, so far. Not counting new stuff. I'm talking about like the back catalog.
Because I haven't sang all the back catalog, but the songs I have done, actually, "Forbidden Evil," the song itself is I don't know why. That's just it's a very fun song to sing. So that one's a favorite. I would say "Chalice of Blood," but that's only because it just gets the crowd pop every time, and everyone wants that song. Infinite's tough sometimes, but it's a satisfying one. That one's really fun to sing. "Marching to Fire" is really good. I did get to sing "Adapt or Die" off of Omega Wave, and that one was fun.
Cool.
I'm hoping that I get to sing more.
That's a phenomenal song, by the way.
Yeah, so that one I did do once at one show. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, this whole next summer when we do our run, it's the 35 years of Twisted in Form. So I'm here learning, forbidden lyrics for the last 3 songs that we haven't done yet for that album. So I think the plan is to do all of Twisted in Form, a few songs off of Forbidden Evil, and then hopefully maybe our new single.
So let me ask you this. What forbidden song that you have not sung yet is one that you were dying to sing on stage? There's 2 that I really like that I would love to sing. They're both off Omega Wave. One is "Dragging My Casket," and the other one is "Swine." Swine. I was hoping you would say that. That's like my second favorite song off of that album.
That's such a good song. But those are 2 that at some point I'd love to do. I mean, like, that being like my favorite Forbidden album. I mean, God, they got so many. Overthrow, Hypnosis. There's just some really good stuff. Forsaken at the Gates.
Yep. First track.
Yeah, in the beginning when we were trying to put together songs, I had a list of songs off of all the albums that I was supposed to start learning, including stuff off Distortion and Green. But of course, as things happen and we put sets together, I learned, you don't have to learn all that other stuff because it's not going to be played anytime soon. So
that's interesting. Have you sang anything off Distortion?
No, I started learning 2 songs. I started learning "Rape" and "Feed the Hand."
Okay.
Those were 2 that I was given initially.
Yeah.
And I started learning, and then, I gave up on them because we weren't going to be playing them anytime in the next year or 2. So I was like, all right, well, the time comes, if we pull one out, I'll learn it along with the rest of the guys. Cause Dan would have to learn it. Chris would have to learn it.
Yeah.
And Craig and Matt would have to brush up.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about your solo album for a minute. That second solo album I thought was a lot different and, a lot better than the previous one. How was that received for you? Because I felt like for the first time, because the first album felt like it didn't exist. But the second one, it felt like I actually saw a lot of it in my timeline, my social media feed, and I thought the record was actually very good.
Thank you. The first album. So the difference between the 2 is, even though the first album was a Skinner album, at that time it was a band called Skinner. It wasn't me as a solo, and that was from the fallout of Imagika. Basically, I had left and I actually joined a progressive metal prog band, and it was all like atmospheric and math metal, just really crazy stuff, because I wanted to do something more power prog, because I'm a big fan of that stuff. The guitar player that was the second guitar player in Magic at the time asked me to dinner, and then he's like, "Hey, bro, I know you're not in Magic anymore, but I'd still like to write with you. I'd like to do something." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm down." I was keeping everything wide open, because this turned into a really bad split when I left Magic in 2010. It was not nice. It was not friendly. And then next thing you know, they auditioned a couple singers. that butchered everything that I wrote from what I heard. And then the band just fell apart. And then next thing you know, the bass player came my way. And so I had the guitar player, the bass player. And this is a fun fact. We were at the listening party for Forbidden's Omega Wave in the parking lot when the bass player says, dude, we should name the band Skinner. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not that much of a narcissist. We're not naming the band Skinner. And then they're like, oh, we're going to name it Skinner. And it'll piss Steve off, who was the other guitar player that we were all pissed off at the time. So, you know, that band kind of came together. It wasn't a solo band, but they named it Skinner. And that album was very much just here's a different version of Imagika without the core Imagika writer, right? I mean, so it was everybody else. That album did okay for a band that just plays local shows, kind of like a bigger fish in the pond here, but didn't really tour, didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now we fast forward to the second solo album. That one I worked in the background for like 8 years. That is a solo album. That is me picking the songs, the structure, the everything, working with various different people to make the album the way I wanted it to sound. And it turned out fantastic. And it was absolutely well received. I did not get one bad review on that. And I was worried because it's got a lot of different flavors to it. And I wasn't sure if everyone would pick up on what I was doing. And what happened was the album got released, and then 3 weeks later, an announcement went out that I joined Forbidden. So that pretty much just swallowed up my 8-year in the making solo album release. And it just pretty much killed it because all the attention went to Forbidden, and then I'd get little sprinkles of, oh, you have this solo album. Tell us about that.
I remember it was really funny. If I remember correctly, the interview that we did the last time was literally like a week and a half before that. And I'll never forget, I put the interview up, and then like it was like 3 days later, the announcement for Forbidden came out, and I was like, man, didn't know anything about that, but but it was cool. I mean, I at least did kind of an addendum and talked about that. But you know, one of the things that's interesting is a lot of these Bay Area bands have really done a great job with a lot of their albums when they came back. You know, like I said, I thought that the Forbidden album, Omega Wave, I remember getting it and trying to remember if I had Craig on my radio show. I could be wrong, but I believe he might have come on my show back then, and we did an interview for it. But I absolutely love the album. I mean, I still go and listen to that record even today. You know, that's really how great of an album that it is. So pretty interesting though with the solo record, because the solo record was really, really good. It was very well. I mean, the production sounded good. I thought the songs were very good. It was different from the power metal stuff you were doing, and it was obviously not thrash.
Yeah, a little more modern sound than the power metal stuff, and definitely some heavier stuff. But I mean, you know, I am working on the new one right now, and I have about songs for at least 75% of it already, including some of those that were going to be on Niviane's album, but that we're revamping because, you know, it doesn't need to have 2 full solo sections now and all this little extra. I like my solo stuff to be a little more streamlined where it can be, and just modern. But I'm excited. People will not have to wait so long anymore for the rest of my solo stuff. I'm always going to be working on it and just keep it going, because it's like you hinted on this in the very beginning of when we were talking. I am doing a thrash band, so there's no need to have another thrash band. You know what I mean? Correct. This solo stuff is strictly for me to get out all the stuff that I like to do that I can't do in Forbidden, basically.
Yeah. You know, I read off your resume in the very beginning of the show, but there's an album that I liked that you sang on that I thought was very good, was the Hellscream album.
Oh, the Hellscream. Yeah, I did two Hellscream albums with those guys. What's funny is I absolutely hate the production on both of them.
Yeah.
That was one reason why I didn't want to do a third one, because
Mhm.
and nothing against Dave. Dave's great, but these were do it yourself, recording studio releases and side project thing. But for me, the first Hellscream album, titled "Made Immortal," has absolutely a handful of some of my most favorite songs I've ever written and recorded on that album. But unfortunately, the production is very much lacking. But but we did some fun stuff. We did some good writing. The second album, Hate Machine, I'm a little less of a fan of. I don't think the songs are as strong, but there are some gems on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun, making albums with people that you've met once or twice in person, and that's it.
Yeah. Better be careful, man. Conan might come after you.
No, Conan, love that guy.
He's a cool dude. I'm just messing with you, man.
Yeah, he's a really good riffer, great songwriter. But yeah, my only bad thing about those is, like I said, it's I really wish that we would have gone to an actual pro engineer. That's all.
Yeah,
but like I said, this was just a labor of love side project recording.
Yeah, and I think too with him, I think he's gotten better behind the production of the records, because if you listen to like the last like 3 Tremors album, it's a lot more polished. He obviously became better at doing that stuff. But yeah, that first Hellscream album, I'd never heard the second one, but the first one I liked quite a bit actually. Production aside,
big fan of that first one. Second one's good. It's like I said, it's got some good stuff on it. It's heavier. I don't know, man. It's just there's just something I can't put them side by side at all. I just really like the first one heads and tails over the second one. So I love the album art for the second one. So but yeah, just you have to, when you get time, check it out. Maybe there'll be a song or two on it you like.
Yeah, I haven't heard it, in all honesty, and the thing is, I know Sean really well, so I'm surprised. Maybe I should ask him if I could hear this or not, because obviously Steel Cartel and Sean Peck and that stuff, his instructional videos on how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and how to turn a fan on, all that fun stuff.
Sean is an insane vocalist, man.
Yeah,
I mean, he's that singer. You hear a guy hit a high note, and then you're like, "Yeah, hold my beer." Sean, he hits notes where I'm just like, "What the hell is in his blood, man?"
Yeah,
insane. But I respect Sean very much, because he's a go-getter. He's a hustler. He makes things happen. So
don't play poker with him.
I don't play poker. I don't gamble with anybody or anything.
Yeah,
honestly.
well, he cleaned out. Just so you know, the legend is when they went and did that, I would think it was that Metal All Stars tour. They went to Bulgaria, and all these like musicians like Zakk Wylde and all these well-known musicians are like, the people are coming up to Sean. He's signing out. I'm like, who the hell is this dude? And then he went to some poker tournament. In Bulgaria and like cleaned out the tournament and won. which is really funny to think about. I don't know if him and I think talked about it on my show before, cleaning out. It's a legendary thing, and that's how some of these guys knew who Sean Peck was. Just kind of a fun fact.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm definitely not going to play poker with him then.
That's what I'm saying. You don't want to play poker with them, dude. I mean, it's one of those types of deals. So, but I'm really, it's great that this Forbidden thing is going along, because I'll be honest with you, I would be highly disappointed if they didn't come out with another album after Omega Wave. So, I'm really excited to hear about that. Let me delve into the Niviane album a little bit.
Sure.
Queen of Phantoms. What is there any kind of concept behind that? And maybe talk a little bit about the actual songs and the lyrical content of the album a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. So Queen of Phantoms, it's not a concept album by any means, but the song itself, we have a friend named Kristen, and on our first album we have a song called Address to You, and on the second album we have a song called Nviane, and they're both about like females. One, one's a deity, one's a mythological. And she's like, oh, she's from a Celtic background, Irish, and she's like, you should write a song about Morrigan,
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about that, so I took the idea and I read up on this Celtic goddess, deity, demon, shapeshifter called Morrigan. So initially the song was called Morrigan, then it was Morrigan, Queen of Phantoms, and then when we named the album, we just dropped it to Queen of Phantoms. But that's what the song is based off of. We stuck with straight up power metal. Let's write about mythological goddess demon shit, right? Then there's a two-parter. So the second and third song are both called 12 BC. One's called Legions, one's called Germania. And that's about the Romans invading the Germanic tribes in 12 BC and the battles they would have there. So Sabaton would be very proud. I went ahead and did a historical two-part song thing. But beyond that, we kind of, on this album, I didn't want to just do all history and mythology and stuff. So, A Beacon in the Darkness, Some Wounds Don't Heal, Tomorrow's a New Day. Those are all, more feeling-based, life stuff. Tomorrow's a New Day has to deal with, mental issues and depression and suicide and all that stuff. And Some Wounds Don't Heal is about losing someone that is, close to you in life. And now sometimes time doesn't heal. It might help, but it doesn't. And so then we've got a song called Event Horizon, which is just about the movie, so
That's
it just
one of the most underrated science fiction movies ever. In fact, Paramount Plus had it on there forever, and that movie's incredible. It's like a great mix of horror and sci-fi.
Absolutely, it's a perfect crossbreed of the two. But yeah, so for this album, I didn't limit myself lyrically. I'm like,
sure,
wrote a song called Gunslingers and Graves about the Old West and shootouts and stuff. I'm like, hey, why not? I think Ord Nogan did, the gunmen and stuff. So like
they did, yeah.
So I'm like, we don't need to be pigeonholed into one little thing. Let's make it where we can write whatever we want. And that was forward thinking because I was already, like I said, working towards the next album.
Sure.
Which, I like to branch out and I want to make sure that I'm never handcuffed.
So, out of curiosity, we'll come close to ending it here in a little bit. If they want to order any of those Niviane albums, how would they go about doing that?
So if they're in Europe or Asia or anywhere that's not in the Americas, I would go straight to Rock Shots Records out of Italy because they're the label and they have the bulk quantity there for distribution. Now, if you're in the Americas and you don't want to pay crazy shipping costs and tariffs and all that other fun stuff, they can just order from my website, normanskinner.net. And I'm always running crazy deals. I think like right now, if they order my last solo album, they get to pick like a free album. So like they could get the new Niviane for free by buying my new. So I think that's one of the deals on there. But like every 2 weeks, I change the deals on there. I think like 2 weeks ago, all shirts were like 30% off for all the bands. But yeah, I got lots of merchandise on my store from all my past bands and current stuff, except Forbidden. There's a link at the top that says if you want Forbidden, it takes you to the store. Because I don't handle any of that, obviously.
Yeah, I'm looking at your site. It says the Metal Chameleon.
Oh yeah, that was a nickname I got when I first started out in the late 90s. I was doing somebody did a review of a show or an album, and because I'm versatile in my style, it's not that I have a wide vocal range or anything like that. It's the fact that within a song, I will change my voice 3 to 4 times, to paint the picture of what I want. And they said I sound like a metal chameleon. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then somebody else published Metal Chameleon, then someone else. So I was like, all right, I'll own that one. That's pretty cool. How often do you get a nickname? So.
Yeah, I needed it. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I've never done this during an interview before, but I just bought a hard copy of the album.
Right
So I've
on,
never
dude.
actually ordered and bought anything while I'm interviewing somebody, but now, if you want to laugh, now I'm actually doing it right now in real time as I'm sitting here. I've never done this before, so you're like the first person that I've done this before. But the one click thing from PayPal always works.
Oh, you
Which
gotta
is,
love that.
yeah, which is what I pretty much did. But yeah, no, cool, man. I think that this Nviane stuff has actually been. I've always liked it because it was so much different than what you normally have always done, and it's sad to see the band go. Actually, when I saw the announcement, it was kind of like, man,
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope. It's interesting, right? Because the guitar player that quit Niviane was Gary Tarpley. He wrote about 75% of the music. However, he and I are working on my solo stuff. Okay, so, but the other guitar player, Mark Miner, I asked him if he wanted to carry on, and he said not without Gary. So,
hold on a second here.
no worries. But I mean, the door is still always open. I mean, if these guys want to write a song and put out a single, I mean, you know what I mean? I'm leaving it wide open. Never say never. I've learned that for sure.
Interestingly enough, what's funny about this is that as I'm doing this, when I went and bought this site, it actually crashed my freaking interface for some odd reason.
Oh, wow.
Man, it's like it doesn't want me to buy the record. Just really really bizarre because it went blank here, which normally I won't do. But I'm gonna keep that on here just because for humor's sake. But yeah, it legitimately just like my whole interface crashed while doing this, and but I successfully ordered the album, and I had to sacrifice about a minute of because it probably cut you off too. Who knows? But I finally successfully ordered it.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
But anyhow, we'll end it off there actually. And any last words for people that are going to be, what can they expect from the new Forbidden album? And any last words for people out there that maybe are going to be checking this out?
No, I just, thank you to anyone that is checking out anything that I've done. I always promote my past and current stuff because in some way or shape or form, I'm proud of everything I've done. I mean, It may be where I am today, but for Forbidden fans, you got a new song that's going to be released within a month or two, and it'll be all over everywhere. Be gentle, please. But besides that, I will be in the studio tomorrow and the day after tomorrow to do 2 more songs. We've only written 3 that are for the whole band. There's other songs in the works.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a full album, but we're just doing them as we go. And then, of course, we got the full European run in August. We got some things planned for fall. And it looks like next year is going to be a ton of touring. I mean, I hear we're going to be touring a lot. So there's going to be lots of chance to see Forbidden out and about. So between touring and writing and releasing this new album, that's it. I will be working on my new Skinner solo stuff, so there's that to look forward to at some point. And then I also have another recording project which is more symphonic metal and stuff. So I always got something. I already got some irons in the fire, different things.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, it was always fun. It's always fun to have you on, and definitely it's a blast learning about not only some of the stuff you've done in the past, but to get a little bit of a preview of what the new Forbidden might bring us as well.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.